Hi, everybody. Today we have a wonderful new guest who I came across kind of by accident uh, in social media, actually. And she has been a newscaster for many, many years. And she has an interesting story to tell. When she was the newscaster, after she was the newscaster, she's doing other things now. And we want to hear about all the things that led up to your being a newscaster, your leaving the newscasting business, and what you're doing now. Kerri Kazarba Schneider. Did I mess up that middle word?
That's perfect. Yes, Kerri Kazarba Schneider.
Okay.
And wow, how much time do you have? That's a long story leading all the way up to
how much time
now.
do you
That's
have?
A lot of years, Dr. Gilda. So I'll go back to college. I decided I wanted to be a journalist in college. And when the local anchor came to my university at the University of Santa Barbara and talked about her job. And I thought how fascinating that sounds to go out and interview people, to be where things are happening. And I immediately knew that's what I wanted to do. So for 20 years, I was a broadcast journalist. I left college. I went straight to CNN in Washington, D.C. as an unpaid intern and had just amazing opportunities. I ended up at the White House in the Rose Garden trying to ask former President Bush a question, and that was exciting. And so I had a lot of experience on the national level as a field producer. I eventually hired me and I became a field producer, but I really wanted to become a reporter. And so I did all the small markets all over the United States, eventually ended up in Seattle, and I was an anchor here in Seattle for about 10 years. And so I've interviewed, I did the math and figured I interviewed about 10,000 people over my career.
Wow.
And I just saw a lot of things that people did well, people did poorly. And I also realized that most people who speak with media don't have media training. They're not taught how to speak with media. And so really it's no wonder that a lot of people mess up and make mistakes. And, Diane, you know how important it is when people have the opportunity to be on your show, for example, and they don't take the opportunity to really say what they want to say. And they're just guided by your questions. And I think your show is much more conversational than a typical media interview, which is nice. So people probably do have the opportunity to talk and say what they want to say. But in a traditional media interview, you've got to know what you want to say and say it. So I thought,
in 3 minutes.
That's the challenge. When they give you this short amount of time to say what you want to say, and how do you do that sometimes is really challenging, I think, for people. And so
that's why I tell my clients, don't approach a media interview like a conversation. That's the last thing you want to do, because really they should be able to say what they want to say, each answer in 30 seconds or less, if it's a broadcast interview. And even if it's a print interview or something else, they need to get their messages really concise and know what they want to say. And so that's what I help people with now.
Well, it's interesting because you come from a whole different point of view than where I come from. I tell my clients, definitely have a conversation with that person. However, do your homework and make it sound conversational, yet know in your head that you have a beginning, middle, and end. You have to engage, you have to enthuse, you have to do a lot of different things while you're conversing. It's not kind of lay back on the couch and I'll tell you what I feel like today. It's getting your points across and knowing your points in advance. Right, Diane?
Well, I think, you both make really interesting points, because I'm looking at it from an interviewer standpoint, and Gilda looks a lot from the interviewee standpoint, because that's more our experience. And then for me, it's based on the show, right? And like you said, my show, it's a back and forth. I met you at a restaurant. What would we talk about kind of show? And I think it, like Gilda's saying, know your audience, know your interviewer. What's their style? What do they want to, what's their thing they're trying to get out? And what can you do to get out what you want to say, but still also meet the needs of their show and whoever they're trying to reach. So, those are the kinds of things that I think a lot of people sometimes come on the show and they're just kind of meander. And I'm thinking, well, didn't you have a reason to be here?
Yes.
And so I asked people to send me questions, even though I don't necessarily ever use any of them. But I said, send me questions you'd like me to ask, because I want them to think about the kinds of things they'd want to talk about before they get on, in case they're a meanderer. Because it helps, And what I think is really interesting about you is Gilda had sent me what you had given out as a piece for people of things not to say.
Yes.
To a reporter. And I like the what you should not do thing. So let's talk about a little bit of that. What are some of the things you're not supposed to say to reporters? And is it just to reporters that list works?
I think it is directed mainly at reporters, yes,
okay.
Because it's a list of things that I heard people say when I was interviewing them, that some things were really bad and other things just didn't sound as good as it could, right?
Okay.
And so the first thing on my list that I put at the very top is I coach people to say, never ever say no comment to a reporter, because what does that make you think when you
Guilty.
hear that? Yes.
You're hiding something.
Exactly. So they don't have to answer the question, right? But they just shouldn't say no comment. I mean, as a reporter, if you go up to someone with the camera rolling and they all of a sudden say no comment, I mean, that's great TV. That's going to make the air, and that's going to make the person who you're talking to look guilty. So just never say no comment.
Right. I love your next comment, or your next of the 7 points. To be honest, I hate when people even talk like that in conversation. Well, to be honest.
Well, the rest of the time I lie, but
exactly.
Dishonest all along? Oh.
Uh-huh. That's a really critical thing. I think any qualifiers always kind of limit what your next statement is. And I think, just teaching doctoral students things to cut out of their dissertation with things like howevers and therefores and just superfluous wording. Sometimes you don't need it. You sound a lot more confident, do you think, if you leave all that stuff out?
Absolutely. I think it's very important to leave those things out, and the as much as you can. I think those are normal in conversation, but those filler words as well don't come across as well as if you don't use them as often. We all say them, I say them too, but you just try not to use them all the time.
Like you mentioned, I think, well, maybe, kind of, sort of, maybe, other. So what are you doing there if you can't be definitive?
Exactly. And people worry. People worry that, well, I don't know for sure something. Well, you know what? You do know for sure something. So say what you know for sure. Say, here's what we know now. This is what we can guarantee, but use strong language, not that weak stuff like, I think, well, maybe. That just does not come across, and it hurts your credibility when you're speaking that way. But a lot of people do.
That's very important, because just the sales training, if anybody's had it, the worst thing you can do is to try and fake it like you know the answer to something. If somebody asks you something, they always would say, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer. I'm going to get back to you. And that's a sales technique, but it also works in this kind of setting. Well, you congratulate them for having such a great thought. Wow, I'm going to have to look into that.
From the humane point of view, it sets you up as a very vulnerable person, that I don't know the answer to everything, but I will get back to you because I know how to find it. And that is a resource you don't want to be without.
Absolutely. I think humility is important, and also just 100% truthfulness. And if you're not the right person for them to ask that question to, it's okay to tell them that as well, and just say, I'm not the right person to answer that question. So let me put you in touch with the right person. And then you do. And that's okay. Nobody's ever out to make you look bad because you don't know something.
People think that when you have a microphone in your face, you have to be the be all and know all to everything. And that is not the case. It's beautiful to say, I don't know this. Or I love these when reporters say to us, well, what do you think so-and-so meant by such and such a thing? Well, how am I supposed to know? What am I, Svengali?
Well, Gilda, you're supposed to say off the record. No,
No!
I know that's the next point, right? Don't ever
There
say
you
that.
go. You're good segue there, leading me
Thank
into
you.
that. So yes, I caution people, unless they're a PR pro, unless they really know what they're doing, they know the reporter well, don't go off the record. Because honestly, I just did honestly, reporters don't, whoops,
Guilty.
reporters don't all agree on what off the record means. So one reporter might think, oh, off the record means I just don't say who told me this. Another reporter will say, well, that means I can't use it. But the truth is, if you say something to a reporter off the record, they can still use that by getting that confirmed with another source. So if you don't want information out there, if you don't want it printed, I tell people, don't say it.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
What is this? Our thoughts are with you? What is that? Our thoughts are with?
Oh, and if that says somebody has died or something and you're trying to give them some
Yes.
sympathetic response.
Yes. So
because it sounds insincere?
Absolutely. I mean, how often do we hear a company or a corporation spokesperson or somebody say, our thoughts are with the family? I mean, that's a nice thing to say and express, but I just think that can be expressed much better. Use the person's name, say something that's more sincere and not just a canned answer like that.
Are they trying to get away from saying something religious or something? I mean, trying to figure out what's a really proper way of putting that, just without going into religious comments that might be taken wrong, I think is what I
Right.
feel that's what they're trying to do.
Exactly. And I think some companies also don't want to admit guilt, for example, if something is a legal case. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons people use that expression, but I think just saying it depends on the situation, but say something simple, like a police officer talking about a car accident and they're investigating, they really can't talk about it, but they can really talk about, gosh, I really feel bad for this family and I understand they're struggling right now and our hearts really go out to them. And just be authentic. Say something that is more meaningful than our thoughts are with the family, right? Mm-hmm. And you can just personalize it a little bit. Just stay away from that specific phrase is what I tell people.
What's wrong with number 6? Our message is.
It sounds like corporate speak and it's boring, right? If somebody says our message is, or
it sounds like you're going to start off on an advertorial.
Yes.
Oh no.
It sounds like you're gonna get really bored by what comes next, is what it sounds like.
Exactly. And I've also heard people say, well, our tagline is, well, nobody cares if that's your tagline.
And the public doesn't even know what the tagline is.
No, exactly. So it's much better just to say the main thing I want you to know today is, and then say what your message is or say what your tagline is, but don't lead off with that. So I think too often people get stuck in their corporate speak, right? And they don't think about the audience, which is super important.
Jargon comes up a lot. Acronyms, all that stuff. You just avoid it. I have had so many people on the show, and I'm trying to look up things while I'm talking to them, going, "What?"
Yeah, and
they're telling me. Imagine everybody else, and I think it's really easy to get used to saying abbreviations and acronyms that come up in your day-to-day activities, just especially if you're a marketing person or somebody that uses a lot of that. But you got to recognize that a lot of people listening have no idea what you're talking about.
Absolutely. I think people should just talk to their audience, talk to a reporter like they're talking to a smart 12-year-old. And it's not talking down to somebody. Right. It's just simply being clear. They have one opportunity to hear you. And if they're trying to figure out what you meant by AOG or this other acronym that you use, then your message is going to get lost. So absolutely, I agree with you. Drop the acronyms. And if you need to say an acronym, immediately define it. Just tell people what it means.
Part of the media training that I have done with very, very technical people is to get them to explain to their 8-year-old child what they do for a living.
Yes.
They go crazy at first. Oh my goodness. They just have such a difficult time, but it's the best exercise for them because they have to really, in our talk, we say dumb it down. And we don't mean that the audience is a bunch of dummies. We say,
Right.
get off your perch, guys. You're all not PhDs out there, and you may be, but everybody else has got to understand what you're saying. So they have to, they are then pushed. The last one is, can I read your story before it runs? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. That
I have others that want to edit it after it's run. That's always good.
Right. I mean, yes, you have so many people, I'm sure, that ask you that. As a reporter, I had people say, well, can I see your story? Can I read your story before it airs? And absolutely not. You don't have control over the story. But I think some people who go into a media interview don't recognize that.
They don't.
And right. And if you're talking to a really small publication or a very local reporter, and when I say local, I don't mean for the local news or the local paper, I mean for like a neighborhood publication, then maybe you can ask them, could I fact check your story, right? Especially if you are relaying technical information, that's a good way to get around it. And you might just say, hey, can I just fact check your story really quick before it goes out? But you have to understand, even those small town reporters might still say no and be insulted, and it shows that you're inexperienced. So it's not a great question.
Well, one time I did get to read stories before they were published because I had such a big event. Something was published in one of the tabloids, and I'm quoted in the tabloids all the time about the celebrities and crazy things that they do, and they're always asking me to for the public to understand what the motivation was behind that. And one time they used their headline, and people don't know that the reporters who write the stories do not headline the stories. That goes to editorial somewhere in another building in another state, perhaps. And the headline was horrible. And it put down a major TV, a star who was who had just finished a movie. And she's very well known. And her fans came after me as though I had just been quoted in the story. When somebody does this, that's what that means. I never even personalize it. And I have this formula down pat. And so nonetheless, the fans came after me screaming and yelling. And my assistant said, I don't even know what you did. I said, I did nothing, but it didn't matter. They associated that with me. And I went back to the publication. I said, that's it. I'm not giving you any more interviews. This is ridiculous. Oh, no, we love you, Dr. Gilda. We want you to continue. And for a while, they were sending me the stories before they were published. I never saw that in my 20 years in the media. I'd never seen that before, but they were worried that I would leave them. So, it's a no. You never ask for it, because you will never get it.
Unless you're Dr. Gilda.
No, unless some insane thing happens and you hit the ceiling and say, that's it, I'm walking. And then, no, we don't want you to do that.
I want to add to that, Gilda, because, before we go into any more points, because I really think it's critical for people to recognize, not only do you not ask to look at the film or whatever, edit beforehand, but people who ask for lots of extra, like, oh, well, I wanted this to be on the, I didn't want to be lined up with this person, or I didn't want this, or can I edit that? You're killing your chances of ever being interviewed by this person again, right?
Oh, that's
absolutely
a big thing. That is a big thing. People say, well, how do you know if you're successful on this television show, on this interview? And I say, sometimes you'll walk off and you'll think it went well, and it may have gone well. But if they call you back and back and back, you'll know that you're a ratings winner. And you know what? You can have 14 heads, but it doesn't make a difference as long as you attract viewers and continue to attract viewers for ratings.
Right. And if you could say what you want to say in an intelligent, concise, interesting way, right?
Right.
What is the craziest thing anybody's ever said to you?
Oh, when you just asked me that, something just jumped in my mind, so I'll go with it. But it was back when Dan Quayle was just leaving office as vice president. And as I interviewed him, he said on air, he said, well, during my years as president, vice president. And so I just thought, oh my gosh, it just made him look, I don't know, everybody can mess up, but it just was the way it happened. But I just felt so bad for him. And he didn't recover very well. And so that's one thing that
it's uncomfortable,
stands out to me. You know, it was just really hurt his credibility.
It's not unlike the malapropes from our current president. I mean, people are saying, he said that, oh my God. And it's embarrassing for us to watch.
Well, I think every president says stuff that you just think, oh, I can't believe they said. And I think I've had people on my show who've done embarrassing things I cut out. You know, obviously I had one guy got stopped by the police while we were talking because he was on his phone in the car. You're not supposed to do that. So I took that out. Okay. But
yeah, that was good of you. I know.
Nice.
What's the craziest thing happened to you, Diane?
That was probably one of the crazier things. I get a lot of pets. I get babies, you know, I get a lot of things because people are, especially now virtually, you know, so I just call them in. Hey, and I thank the dog at the end, whatever, I write down their name of the dog, you know, and I'd like to thank, you know, because what are you going to do? It makes it more fun. I'd rather call out the elephant in the room.
Absolutely. Especially these days, everybody knows you get a crying baby or a barking dog or, you know, doorbell ringing. It's what,
people don't
what
even
it
hear
is.
it anymore. Yeah.
Well, don't
and
you
just be authentic, right? About what is
I
happening.
prefer it. I'd rather
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think everyone does.
Yeah.
I think it's made us all more authentic. But you listen, on stage, when I was doing every talk show imaginable, I walked off without a shoe. I mean, I walked out of a shoe while I was walking across the stage. Then on live television, I was doing an interview, it was a political interview, and I had a coughing jack that didn't stop. And it's live, and
That's bad.
what are you supposed to do? I mean, these things happen. And go with the flow, and you hope for the best. But,
so true.
I'm really interested in what you're doing now, Kerri. I mean, now that I didn't mean to interrupt you, Gilda, but I think that we were talking about all the things you're not supposed to do. So you help people with what they're not supposed to do, but what other things do you help them do?
Yes, good question. A lot more than that.
Yeah.
So as a media trainer, I really help people learn how to effectively speak with reporters. And by that, I mean, what we talked about a little bit before is you don't treat it like a conversation. You go in with your 3 main points that you want to make. Like Dr. Gilda said, you need to know what you want to say. So I work with them on how to say those things, even if the reporter doesn't lead them to those messages, right? That's really important, especially if the interview is going to be short. So I help them with that. I help them understand all the different interview formats. I help them set up a virtual interview like what we're doing now. Mm-hmm. I help them understand the technical part of that, how to come across on camera, what to wear, what not to wear. So many things that spokespeople need to understand to feel comfortable, first of all, and then also just to realize some points that we spoke about earlier is the most important thing is just to be authentic and to be yourself and understand that that's what's going to connect you to the audience, not everything being absolutely perfect. I mean, things are going to happen, right? And then you just have to learn to go with it and deal with it. So it's a lot of fun. And during the pandemic, I, like most other businesses, I had to pivot. I used to do in-person corporate media training workshops for companies, and the pandemic happened and they were still interested in media training, but we couldn't get together. So I put everything into an online course, which I thought would just be a good thing during the pandemic, but people have been so excited about this. They can do it on their own time. It's designed as a 6-week course, but it's only 30 minutes every week is their time commitment. So it's really designed for busy executives. And it has everything that's that I cover in the in-person workshops, all the strategies and tips and a lot of video examples. So people are liking it. And then I do virtual coaching just like this. I'm in my virtual coaching set right now. Yeah. And I work with people on Zoom one-on-one, and we do mock interviews. And some people I'm really soft and nice to, and other people I really grill and work as a really tough reporter would work them, because that helps them get used to it. So yeah, it's been a difficult year in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I've learned a lot about online courses, never dreamed of creating one. And it's a whole new product now that I can offer people, which is really great and exciting.
People don't recognize, I've been doing virtual coaching for years and years with international leaders, and whether they're in Europe or South America or wherever they are, throughout the United States as well. And they don't understand. They think they come to me and all they must do is listen to what I tell them and follow like a monkey. Do this, do this, do this. They have no idea. This is the most surprising thing. They recognize that they had no idea that they have to do so much homework in advance. And so when I wrote this book, this is a new book, Amplify Your Media Presence, Amplify Your Brand. When I wrote this book, I started with two crucial questions. I want to be known for expertise in, and I want to be known for solving this problem. So you have to know in advance what you want to be known for, and then we can get started. And now, whenever I am coaching anybody, I tell them, don't spend your money with me yet. I want you to get this book first, read through it, do the exercises, and come to me prepared. That can save you time and much money. It makes sense.
Absolutely. It does. It does. It's a product that you've created that people can get and read, and it's going to cost them a lot less than working with you directly, which is the same thing with my online course, right? It's the same idea.
It's the same exact thing.
Yeah, I don't know if you already do this, but I think, whether you're doing training through books or MOOCs or any different way, just because I've taught thousands of business courses online, I'm really into the online part of it. When I created my first online course for my own site, I made sure it was aligned with SHRM, because, so many HR professionals can use these kind of courses like what you have and still get credit for that, because how many executives need to learn to speak well to reporters? And so that's something, if it takes a certain number of hours to go through your course, if it's aligned to like Society of Human Resource Management, I did my own thing by saying an acronym I shouldn't have done, but
we all do it.
Okay, so Society of Human Resource Management is SHRM, and there's other things like that you can get certain amount of credits for taking some of this stuff. And I think it encourages people to take some courses like what you offer, or training like what Gilda and I offer, and different things. And so if for anybody who's thinking of training in media, like how all of us do, sometimes just creating a course like what you've done is really critical, but take it to the next step. Let people get credit for taking it in addition. And so their money goes a little bit farther, I think.
That's fantastic advice. I'd never heard of that, nor had I heard of the acronym. So thank you for defining it.
There's a whole bunch of different training sites, but I created a MOOC for Future Learn about my curiosity information, and we did that with the course to make sure it was a free course at first. They can sign up to get more and upgrade and pay for information, but if they do that, then they get, a certification and different things. And it's just a little incentive, and they get something out of it in addition to what you're giving them. So I think it's just an extra nice, it's a nice.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Kerri, we come from a whole different place. You as the reporter, we are speakers. We have been speakers until everything closed down.
You still are.
A lot less.
Different. Yes.
We've been in-person speakers. And we have been college professors. She's still a college professor. I said enough of that. We're authors as well. I mean, we have very similar backgrounds with the PhDs. I'm more in the pop culture. She's more in the academic world and business community. Although I was in the business community, and then I was plunked off the television when I appeared a couple of times, and I had a television career. But you're coming from a different perspective, and this is why I thought it would be such a wonderful thing to get you on today and ask you these questions. Is there anything you want to tell the audience before we close this?
I would just say that if anyone is considering speaking to reporters, get some type of media training before you do. Because unfortunately, most of the people who come to me for training have already made some big mistakes. And media interviews are such a good opportunity to get your message out, for people to get to know you, increase your reputation, increase your sales. And so really know what you're doing before you sign up to do an interview. That's really the best, what I want people to know, whether it's with me or someone else. It really doesn't matter, but just make sure you get that kind of training, or at least go read a book about it before you start to do an interview.
And people don't realize that everybody you see out there, including the celebrities and the political people, everybody has had media training. So how do they get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, Real Media PR, and it's spelled REEL, Real Media, like a newsreel, a film reel, and it's just realmediapr.com. They can find me there, and more information about my course as well.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Diane, do you want to say anything?
I really love this. I think you have some great advice. And I think probably one of the advice one thing we'd hear as advice is to wear solid colors. Look at us, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
There's not going to be any bleeding of our patterns or anything.
Well, Dr. Gilda, I think you talking about relationships, you can get away with wearing more flamboyant and fun things, I think.
Well,
it depends on what you're talking about.
When I have to do a media interview, that is very straightforward. And even when I did an interview on one of the local channels here in Arizona, talking about the royal family, even that I dressed much more conservatively. But I do have the option of going with long, crazy earrings and fun because of the pop culture tilt to what I do. And that's really very exciting. And it's also helped me with everybody I train, because everybody has a relationship issue of one kind or another. And when I go into corporate America and they're talking about the bottom line and they say, can't you do something with what is happening with the morale and the this and the this? And I go in and I do a needs assessment, it's always revolving around some kind of interpersonal relationship that is pulling down that bottom line. So I can do many different things all at once with the background that I have. So it's worked out. And partnering with Diane from the academic and business community, it's just been heavenly. It's just been wonderful. So thank you.
We have fun doing these, and it was so much fun having you on the show. Kerri, I could tell you've done this a million times and you do such a smooth job of it. But I loved your giveaways, and I hope everybody takes time to look at your site because you have some good information there, and I think everybody could use it.
Thank you so much to both of you for having me on and making this really fun. It's been great talking with you both.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.